You want to see your kid again, right? Then you better do exactly what I say. That's what the fake HOA cop told my visitor. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that the woman trembling in front of him wasn't some helpless mother. She was a detective, one who'd been building a case against men exactly like him. And by the time the night was over, his badge, his gun, and his life as he knew it would all be gone. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. It all started like any other afternoon in Maple Crest Estates, that picture-perfect suburban bubble where even the lawns looked nervous under HOA watch. My visitor that day was Jessica Vance, a family friend from the city who had stopped by after work to drop off some paperwork for my wife. She'd parked her blue sedan on the curb outside the community park. Nothing illegal, nothing unusual, but apparently it was enough to trigger him, the self-proclaimed HOA cop named Officer Hayes. He wasn't a real cop, not even close. The HOA had hired him for neighborhood patrols after a few break-ins. What they didn't realize was that they'd given a bully a costume and a reason to play God. Jessica told me later how it started. He approached her car, hand resting on a holstered weapon, the kind that looked fake until it wasn't. He barked license and registration before she could even roll her window down. "Is there a problem?" she asked politely. "Problem is, you're in a restricted zone," he snapped. "And you people think the rules don't apply to you." Jessica blinked. "You people?" He smirked. "Yeah. Outsiders. Visitors. Don't matter which way you say it." It was clear what he meant. He accused her of looking suspicious, claimed she was loitering near private property, then ordered her out of the car. Jessica complied. Calm, collected, professional. But Hayes wasn't looking for compliance. He wanted control. He searched her car without consent, pretending to sniff for drugs, muttering slurs under his breath. Then, as she watched in disbelief, he planted a small bag of white powder in her back seat, right under the armrest. "Found it," he said with a smirk. "Looks like possession with intent." Jessica froze. "That's not mine." "Sure it isn't," he said, leaning closer. "Now, here's how this works. You do what I say, or I make one call, and your little boy grows up without a mother." Her heart pounded. His voice dropped to a sick whisper. "Start by removing that top." Jessica stared at him, eyes wide, pulse hammering. "What did you just say?" He smiled, the kind of smile that curdles your blood. "I've never been with a woman like you, so unless you want to spend the night in a cell, you'll do as I say." Jessica's body stiffened. She was terrified, but beneath the fear was something else: calculation. Because what Hayes didn't realize was that the whole thing was being recorded from the hidden camera she'd turned on the moment he'd started harassing her. She looked him straight in the eye and said quietly, "I think you just made the biggest mistake of your life." And she was right. Because within 24 hours, that fake HOA cop's world would come crashing down in front of every badge in the precinct. Hayes yanked Jessica out of the car with unnecessary force. Her shoulder hit the doorframe, the pain sharp enough to steal her breath, but she didn't fight. Not yet. She knew how to survive moments like this. Let the aggressor believe he's in control. "Face the car," he barked, pushing her toward the hood. "Hands behind your back." Jessica complied, heart hammering, eyes tracking the reflection in the windshield. She saw his smirk, the arrogance of someone who'd done this before and thought he'd get away with it again. But what he didn't know, tucked under her sleeve, was the miniature speaker pinned to the inside seam of her jacket, blinking red and transmitting every word to a secure server. "Stay still," he said, pulling one wrist roughly into position, his body pressing too close to hers. "You're making a mistake," Jessica said quietly. "Quiet," he snapped. "You think you can mouth off to law enforcement?" She turned her head slightly, her voice calm but cutting. "You're not law enforcement, Hayes. You're a rent-a-cop with a power complex." For the first time, he hesitated. "How do you know my name?" "I make it my business to know who abuses authority," she said. The words hit harder than he expected. He pushed back, angry now, and reached for his radio, but before he could press the button, another voice crackled through the air, a dispatcher from the Real Police channel. Jessica's hidden transmitter had patched in live audio. "Unit 47, report your location," the voice said. Hayes froze. "What?" Jessica smiled slightly, the kind that told him the game had just flipped. "They're listening, Hayes. Every word, every lie." His eyes darted toward the road. Two police cruisers were turning the corner, sirens silent but lights flashing. Panic set in. He stepped back from her, muttering curses, but it was too late. The first cruiser screeched to a stop behind his fake patrol car. Two officers emerged, hands on their weapons. "Step away from the vehicle," Hayes stammered. "This woman, she's under arrest." "For what?" one of them barked. He reached toward the trunk, fumbling for the planted bag, but Jessica beat him to it. She turned, cuffs still half fastened, and held up the small bag between two fingers. "You mean this evidence?" she said. "Because that's what he just dropped in my car." The senior officer looked at her, then at Hayes. Sir, put your hands where we can see them. Hayes tried to talk his way out of it, but his voice shook. The officers searched him, found two more identical baggies in his jacket pocket. Jessica straightened her sleeves, finally taking control of her own cuffs. You're done, Hayes, she said softly. And you don't even know how badly. As the officers read him his rights, Jessica watched the realization dawn across his face. He wasn't arresting anyone. He was the one being arrested. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. They brought him in kicking and sputtering, still trying to talk his way out of it. Hayes kept shouting about false evidence, about a setup, but the only thing getting set up was his booking photo. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The fake HOA cop who thought he could ruin a woman's life now sat cuffed in his own precinct, red-faced and trembling. Captain Reynolds stood waiting by the front desk, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The officers dropped Hayes into a chair. Found him pulling an illegal stop, Captain, one said. Victim claims he planted narcotics and made threats. Victim? Hayes sneered. That woman's no victim. She's a liar. Some random civilian I caught breaking the law. Funny, Reynolds said quietly. Because that random civilian requested this meeting. Hayes blinked. What meeting? Reynolds didn't answer. He just nodded toward the hallway. The door to the captain's office opened, and in walked Jessica. Calm, composed, not in jeans and a blouse anymore, but in a perfectly fitted dark gray pantsuit. Her badge hung from a silver chain that caught the fluorescent light like justice itself. The room fell silent. Hayes stared, color draining from his face. What is this? Reynolds' tone turned sharp. Officer Hayes, meet Detective Jessica Vance. Internal Affairs, 6th Precinct. Hayes' jaw dropped. She's a detective, Reynolds finished for him, and she's been investigating misconduct complaints across multiple counties. We've had your name flagged 3 times already, so I asked for a little help. Jessica stepped closer, her voice steady. We received reports of you abusing authority, falsifying charges, and targeting women alone. I decided to see for myself if the rumors were true. You set me up, Hayes spat, struggling against the cuffs. Jessica's gaze didn't waver. You set yourself up. I gave you every chance to do your job correctly. You made every choice that brought you here. The captain turned to the watching officers. Check his patrol vehicle. Any planted evidence comes back on his record. They left and within minutes returned with a bag of identical narcotics packets, all matching the one Hayes had tried to frame her with. It was over. Reynolds sighed. Officer Hayes, you're under arrest for misconduct, evidence tampering, and abuse under color of authority. The officers stepped forward, but Reynolds stopped them. Detective Vance, would you like to do the honors? Jessica walked up to him slowly. He couldn't even look at her. With one fluid motion, she removed the cuffs from her belt and replaced the ones already on his wrists, the click echoing through the room like a gavel strike. Consider yourself relieved of duty, she said coldly. Hayes hung his head, defeated, the weight of his arrogance finally collapsing on him. As they led him out through the main hallway, every officer he passed stared. Whispers followed, then silence. The kind of silence that ends a career. Outside, Jessica paused at the door. She looked up at the sun breaking through the clouds, the same light she'd seen when he stopped her. Only now, it felt like closure. Captain Reynolds joined her. You handled that well, Detective. She nodded once. No one should get away with using a badge to terrorize the people they swore to protect, he smiled faintly. Remind me not to ever get on your bad side. She returned it with a small, tired smile. Just don't pull me over. They both laughed softly as Hayes was loaded into a cruiser. His own ride, his own cuffs, his own undoing. Within a week, the charges stacked up fast. Evidence tampering, false imprisonment, abuse under color of authority, and sexual harassment with intent to coerce. The DA didn't play around. The court found Hayes guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 32 years in federal prison with no chance of parole for the first 16. He also lost his badge, his pension, and was placed on the National Registry for Law Enforcement Misconduct, permanently barred from working any security or government position ever again. What do you think, folks? Was that karma or calculated justice? Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if someone tried to abuse their badge like that? The end.